All right. So you know how you're always trying to wrap your head around these like big global issues? You want the download without getting lost in the weeds. Well, today we're going to do a deep dive into something really, really fundamental.
Yeah.
Japan's population. Have you heard about this?
It's a big one.
It's a huge deal. And I think a lot of people have this idea that, Japan's population is aging.
Yeah, definitely aging.
And it's actually way more dramatic than that.
It really is. Yeah, we've been looking into this, looking at all the reports and analyses,
Oh, yeah.
trying to figure out, why is this happening? What does it mean?
What can they do?
What are the consequences and what are they doing about it? So we're going to kind of pull out all the key insights.
Yeah, give it to you straight.
So you can understand the core of this challenge.
Yeah, and one thing that really, really hit me was just how fast this is all happening.
Right.
Because births in Japan recently hit an all-time low.
Right.
And at the same time, deaths were the highest they've been since World War II. Wow.
So this resulted in a natural population decrease of over 500,000 people.
They're 500,000?
In 1 year.
Yeah, that's incredible.
So it's not like a gradual thing.
Right.
It's accelerating.
It's really speeding up. Yeah, and it makes you think about the long term. What does this mean for Japan going forward?
Yeah, where are they going to be in 50 years?
Exactly. And projections actually suggest that Japan's population could drop below 100 million by the middle of the century.
Wow.
I mean, think about that.
That's a huge drop.
That's a significant decrease from where they are now. And it really, makes you think about what that means for their future.
Yeah. So let's unpack this whole demographic landscape a bit.
Yeah.
So it's not just that people are living longer.
Right.
It's that the gap between births and deaths is widening.
Exactly.
And that means the population itself is shrinking.
It's shrinking, yeah. And that has all sorts of implications. And one of the big things is that the median age is increasing rapidly.
Right. And the ratio of elderly people to working age people is growing. And that's what they call the dependency ratio.
I see.
So essentially, it tells you how many working age people are supporting each retiree and child.
Oh, I see.
And when that ratio goes up, it puts a lot of strain on the Social Security system.
Makes sense.
And we also see that, rural areas are often experiencing even sharper declines.
Yeah.
Which adds another layer of complexity.
So we were looking at all this data.
Yeah.
And one number that really stood out was the total fertility rate.
Right.
Which basically means the average number of children a woman has.
Yeah.
And to maintain a stable population, that number needs to be around 2.1.
Right around replacement level.
Right. But in Japan, it's been consistently way below that.
Way below, yeah. And, even back in 2000, it was only around 1.36.
Wow.
And it's kind of stayed around there.
So this has been going on for a while.
Yeah, it's a long-term trend.
So what's causing all of this?
Well, a big part of it is the economic situation.
Yeah.
Japan went through a period of prolonged economic stagnation, often called the lost decades.
I've heard of that, yeah.
Referring to a period of low growth after the early 1990s. And that created a lot of economic uncertainty.
Right.
For young people especially. And that made them, prioritize financial stability.
Yeah.
Before even thinking about things like marriage and children.
Makes sense.
And our sources actually highlighted a correlation between economic downturns and drops in birth rates.
Interesting.
So there's a definite link there.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, beyond the bigger economic picture, you also have to think about just the work-life balance in Japan.
Right.
It's notorious for long working hours.
Yeah.
And there's just not enough childcare available.
Yeah, a lack of support there.
So it forces people, especially women, to choose between their career and having a family.
Right. It's our choice.
And then on top of that, you've got the cost of raising children.
Yeah.
Which is super expensive.
Very expensive. And that's a major deterrent for a lot of people.
Of course. Yeah.
It's like, how can we afford to have kids with all these other expenses?
Right. But it's not just about the money either.
No, it's not.
It's also about changing values.
Yeah. Societal values are evolving and younger generations are, increasingly putting more emphasis on personal fulfillment.
Yeah.
And career goals.
And things like travel and experiences.
Exactly.
Instead of, settling down and having kids.
Right. They're prioritizing different things.
So what are the consequences of all of this?
Well, there are a lot of them, and they're pretty significant.
Like what?
Well, one of the biggest ones is the shrinking labor force.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if you have fewer people working, that leads to potential shortages.
Right.
Which can impact productivity and, ultimately Japan's competitive edge in the global economy.
And then there's that whole Social Security issue we talked about,
Yeah, the strain on the system is going to intensify.
because you have fewer workers supporting more and more retirees.
Exactly. And that's not sustainable in the long run.
And then, this might seem kind of obvious, but a shrinking and aging population can also just hinder overall economic growth
Yeah, it can affect everything.
because it affects consumer spending and investment and even innovation.
Right. All the things that drive a healthy economy.
So it's like a ripple effect.
It really is.
And it's not just about the economics either, right?
No, there are social and cultural transformations happening too.
Yeah.
We're seeing a rise in single-person households
Yeah. More people living alone.
and a decline in multi-generational families.
Right.
So those traditional social support networks are kind of weakening.
And that can be isolating.
Yeah, especially for older people who might need more support.
And it's hitting rural communities pretty hard too.
It is, yeah. In those areas, you see a lot of business closures
Yeah.
because there just aren't enough customers.
And then people start leaving.
And then services start disappearing.
So it's like a downward spiral.
It can be. Yeah, and it really raises questions about, how cultural norms around aging and work and family life need to adapt to all of these changes.
Right. So it's not just about fixing the birth rate. It's about rethinking how society functions.
Exactly. It's a much broader challenge.
So what have they tried to do about it?
Well, they've implemented various policies.
Yeah.
Things like financial incentives,
Mm-hmm.
child allowances, birth grants.
Trying to make it easier to have kids.
Yeah, trying to sweeten the deal.
Yeah.
But the data suggests that those haven't been that effective in the long term.
Right.
They might provide a little boost, but they don't really address the underlying issues.
So it's not just about throwing money at the problem.
No, it's more complicated than that.
What else have they tried?
Well, they've also tried to expand childcare
Yeah.
and promote work-life balance. Trying to reduce working hours, encourage parental leave.
That sounds good.
Yeah, it sounds good in theory, but the implementation has been inconsistent.
Oh.
And it's not clear how much of an impact it's really having on reversing the decline.
So they're trying, but it's not enough.
Right. They're working on it, but they need to do more.
So is anyone doing it right?
Well, there are other countries that have had more success,
Like who?
like France and Sweden.
Okay.
They have more comprehensive family support systems,
Uh-huh.
and they've seen higher birth rates as a result.
So maybe Japan could learn from them.
Possibly.
Yeah.
But you have to be careful about just copying policies
Right.
because every country is different.
Of course.
And what works in one place might not work in another.
So what does the future hold for Japan?
Well, if things continue as they are,
Yeah.
the population is likely to keep shrinking.
Makes sense.
And that's going to have all sorts of consequences.
We've talked about those.
But there's always the possibility of, unforeseen technological or social shifts that could change things.
Yeah. Who knows what the future holds?
Sure.
But it doesn't look great right now.
It's a challenge for sure.
So Japan's facing a pretty serious crisis here.
It's complex.
But this deep dive has shown that they really need to take a comprehensive approach.
They do. It's not a simple fix.
Like, they need to strengthen economic security for young people,
Right.
really implement work-life balance reforms,
Make it easier for people to have both a career and a family.
address gender inequality.
Yeah, give women more opportunities.
Look at what other countries are doing,
See what's working elsewhere.
and maybe even consider immigration.
Yeah, that's a controversial one, but it's something to think about.
It really makes you think, you know?
It does.
Because these demographic shifts in Japan,
Yeah,
they could offer some valuable lessons for other countries.
absolutely.
Because many countries are facing similar trends.
Aging populations, declining birth rates.
It's a global issue.
That's not just Japan.
So it's like a glimpse into a potential global future.
It is, and it's something we all need to be thinking about.
So there you have it.
The Japan dilemma.
It's complicated.
It is. But hopefully now you have a better understanding of what's going on
Yeah. And what's at stake?
and what the potential solutions might be.
So thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
And we'll catch you next time.
See you later.